Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of weddings, people, and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back to the show. Today is a special episode because, as many of you probably already know, the trends report came out from the Knot, and there is a ton of data to go through. And luckily, we are super lucky because we actually have Tom Chelednik from the Knot and Wedding Pro, who is the North America Associate Director of Vendor Relations. Always have to get that title right. But before I bring him on, let me bring on my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hi, Marcy.
Hello.
Oh, my goodness. It took me a little bit. I'm like, okay, it's been a bit since we've been through this. And I'm like, oh, how do you do this?
I know. And Keith, you and I have not seen each other for a long time. Like it's been in person for a while now. So well, you've been quite the busy beaver.
Yeah, it has been a really crazy season and lots of other things. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the trends report because, my God, there's a lot of
everybody
data.
loves the trends. I mean,
Right. But, the one thing I will say is that at least the Knot has the numbers and the data to back it up, because that is the thing, is that thousands upon thousands of couples go through the Knot to look at places to get married at, what, vendors to book. I mean, everything that they look at becomes a data point that the Knot then collects. It's incredible.
And we're going to talk about the statistics and everything that are behind it, because there is so much data that they have, that they have collected over this last session here. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Well, so let's bring on Tom Chelednik. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you for having me. I've been excited for this for a couple of weeks.
Yay. Well, and here's the thing is that, the last time you were on, it was incredible. We had such a great turnout with when you were last on the show. I mean, I think like the YouTube piece was almost 23,000 people watched what you talked about on the last one. And I have a feeling that it's going to be very similar. I don't know. You never know what's going to tick people and not. But trends are a big deal right now. I mean, we're just about to get into 2025. It seems like the 2020, as we wrap up, people start looking to next year. And this report goes deep into a lot of the statistics that I think that not only vendors, but couples are going to be really interested in. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that Gen Z, again, is the motor that keeps propelling.
Absolutely. This generational shift is here. It's here.
Crazy. It is crazy. I mean, and the fact is, and one of the things that really was surprising is that Gen Z seems to be more happy, more joyous about the idea of getting married than I think I've seen in several of these generations. God, age myself a little bit there. But, I mean, you know what I mean? I feel like there's such a positivity that is happening in around the world of weddings. Is the data supporting that kind of thought process?
Absolutely. The data supports it. It's interesting with Gen Z too. Like we do also a real wedding study that the new one will come out in February, March timeframe. And inside of that, Keith, are you here? Did we lose?
Yeah, I'm here. No, you're fine. You're good. I just switched to a big screen.
And the descriptor that couples have used for years and years is, I want my wedding to be fun. They still want their wedding to be fun, right? But Gen Z is describing their wedding also as romantic, right? They wanted this romantic wedding also. And I feel that it's describing it as a romance, because this generation unfortunately comes from a lot of divorce. So they're romanticizing their wedding too. They want it fun, but they also want this romantic wedding. What does that mean to wedding pros is, right? We should be talking about romance and showing pictures of romantic, fluffy stuff and all of those things,
But it's so surprising to see a generation that came from a period of divorce and a lot of breakups and a lot of like, okay, what's next? The newest next now kind of moment. And they're almost going opposite of that. They're waiting a little bit to get married. They're being a little bit more focused on getting married, but they're also envisioning like lots of great stuff. Like they really want that interactive commitment, that really the merging of two families, that whole thing I think that they didn't get when they were growing up.
Yeah. 48% of this generations, they're thinking about their wedding way before their wedding, what it might look like in the future, the vibe, the theme, the location, right? 31% of them are saving posts about weddings, ideas, inspirations on social media. And more than 10% research looked at wedding vendors, and almost 10% started following a wedding vendor on social media long before they were thinking of getting married. This is an interesting time because traffic starts going up this time of year on the not wedding wire. Why? Because they're anticipating the ring. They might not have gotten it yet, but they're starting to plan their wedding. They might have reached out to Marcy. They might have reached out to Keith, and they're saying, "Do you have a date yet?" We don't have a date yet. But
Right.
always looking for inspiration too.
And the Gen Z that's 12 to 27. So are we finding that the couples are getting younger in the way that they're getting married, or for a while it was shifting up a little bit to the later 20s?
Yeah, I mean it's that is I think 27, 28 is that marrying age. But younger millennials also sort of gear towards Gen Z in many ways too. So that early 30s too, they're on that cusp. I'm a Leo, July 23rd. Sometimes I'm a Leo, sometimes I'm a Cancer. Same thing sometimes in these generational shifts. That's what's happening. But it is overall, it's just an interesting time in weddings. Interesting time in this generational shift of, for instance, they use more video. They consume more video than any other generation before its time.
Right. They get most of their information now online. So, I mean, 80%, I think recently I heard one study where they said that 80% of the information that Gen Zers get is online versus TV shows and news reports that we used to get on regular channels.
Yeah. Yeah. And 91% of them are using online platforms to plan their weddings.
That said to me, that says a couple of things. First, it says that, the data here is really driven because guess where that data is coming from? It's from people going through online platforms. But the second part is the fact that, vendors need to be online more than ever, right? The old way of advertising is becoming obsolete. I mean, I just literally got a phone call today about advertising in one of those golf books, those at a golf country club. And I was like, I think I'll stick with the knot. Thank you very much. But, and because that's the thing is that more and more of the Gen Z is finding their inspiration, their vendors, their everything online and using online tools like the knot.
Yeah. I mean, what's crazy is just statistically, we're expecting this year was about 2 million weddings happening. Next year, we're expecting about 2 million weddings. So we're resetting, coming off of COVID and all of that stuff. The knot itself gets about the knot wedding wire gets about 2.3 million couples signing up on our site every year. So we're getting the majority of those couples plus, right? But apps, for instance, right? Like if you haven't downloaded the Knot app, download that app because 78% of couples are using that app and it's getting 4,000 downloads per day. So
4,000 downloads a day.
So on average, there's 21 million unique visitors per month on our site. So it just goes to show you, yes, they're online. We know that they're online. That's not new. What's not news to anybody. But we also know statistically from these trends, the weddings aren't going anywhere. It's still $100 billion a year industry just in the US. There are still plenty of couples out there getting married. This theory of, Gen Z isn't getting married, they're still getting married. Marriage is even more important to them than the millennials and other generations because they want that idea of romanticizing and they're taking their time a little bit to find the right partners.
And I think that it seems to be coming across in the guest lives as well, is that they are being a little bit more specific about the people that they invite and who is involved in their wedding. Because, I remember when weddings used to be 250, 300, 400 people. And then it was down to 180, 170. And your latest report saying flatline around 115 seems to be the average number of guests. Am I correct on that?
Across the country, right? That's across the country, about 150 across the country. I had 30 some years ago, I had 527 people at my wedding. We had big weddings.
I don't even know that many people.
I didn't even know those people, but it's, it was more for the parents. But 115 is flat. And things are more expensive than ever before. The economy is a concern. People are still getting married. People still have money. But we see this continued trend of smaller guest sizes, but spending more per guest to give that great guest great guest experience.
So they're not spending less overall for the whole wedding. What they're doing is and we'll get into this a little bit, but experience is everything right now for them, making sure that their guests have this really great experience. And so the smaller number of guests makes sense because it's easier to create a guest experience for a smaller guest list. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. You know it better than I do as the planner and the stationary. It's all about that feeling and that guest experience that they're doing. So can't afford how many people can afford a 500 person wedding at this point in some markets that they're there, like Midwest markets, Pennsylvania markets, things like that. Those guest counts are still 200-300, but on an average across the board, we're about 115.
So I hate to bring this up because I know that it worries me a little bit, but the idea of elopement seems to have gone up pretty dramatically in this new trends report. Is there a rise in the idea of elopement? Oh, micro weddings. Okay,
micro weddings are considered like 50 people or less. 48% of couples are considering this an option. And it's rising on this new one to 57% among those that are currently engaged. So it went from 48% just recently of last year that maybe 57% are considering this idea of a micro wedding. But we also know when they're newly engaged, they have no clue, right? They don't know, am I inviting 20, 30, 50, 700 people? So the idea of what they start out thinking compared to where they end up is very different. But the importance of knowing that statistics across the board, especially for wedding pros across the country, do you have a micro wedding package? Do you have, services or products to speak to that group?
Well,
it's just not as many guests.
Well, so one of the things is that as a planner, it takes me the same amount of time to book a wedding for 20 people as it does 50 people or 100 people or 200 people. So that's sometimes a little hard because it takes me the same amount of work to find the right venue, to find the right vendors, all that good stuff. But has the term micro, I'm wondering if at some point do we need to start rethinking the idea of what a micro wedding is, considering that the guest count number has really fallen over the years, and that if the average is now 115, what is a micro wedding? Is it 10% or 20% of what the average is? And are we looking at micro weddings really being 20 or 25 people versus the previous or the current definition of 50 people?
Yeah,
just a thought.
Just a thought to your point. I think the great news is we have all the data in the world, and we're keeping a really tight finger on that. It's important because for us, we're a two-sided marketplace, right? So we have to have couples, and we have to serve couples inspirations and vendors and everything that they want for all types of weddings, micro to, weddings are 3,000 people and everything in between. But also on the other side, we have to take this information, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our data to help other wedding pros. Like, maybe they got a little box here. This is a number that we continue need to watch for sure. And
especially for some of us that have been in the industry for quite a bit. I mean, the thing is that we have to change our perspective on what people are looking for and the size of weddings that we're going to be planning for. The idea that, everybody wants a small wedding. Well, there's no such thing as a small wedding anymore. The small wedding is going to be doing a lot of these other trends. And one of the big ones is personalization. I mean, I cannot even tell you how many couples I've talked to, and I said, well, people love to see their name on stuff. They love to see their name on stuff.
I cannot tell you how much my business has grown in the sense of, personalization is everything these days. Everybody, like you said, wants to see their name, but it's also not just their name, it's their personalities that are coming out in the things that they're printing and the materials that they're showing at the wedding. And you're on your menu card, on your signage, there's so many details that they're really getting very personal to expose to their guests.
Because that adds to the guest experience. And so, Tom, yes. What is it about the guest experience? I mean, are we seeing an increase in the focus on the guest experience based on 100 versus?
Yeah, even more of a focus on it, like from Marcy's business of a stationary, all the way from the save the dates and how they're doing save the dates. Are they online? Are they boxes? Are they all this experience from the very beginning? How they're branding everything, right? Like the word branding across the wedding industries for couples is a big thing from the beginning of it to save the date or engagement, even all the way to, that, how they're sending thank you cards. So, as wedding professionals, we need to help our couples and understand what their guest experience they want to give, and then the reality of what they can give based on their budget and tools and things like that. But also be cognizant about, like, every wedding is unique, how can we make it more unique for them? Based on whatever their budget is. It doesn't, there's certain things as professionals, wedding pros out there, that we're blessed enough to be able to connect with our couples, that you guys know what to say and do and help these things.
Well, I actually had a couple that I've actually had 3 weddings recently that wrote thank you notes to every single person that came to the wedding. And I just was like, okay, start early, right? Because you don't want to do that. Try to do that last minute.
Wedding or at their place setting.
As a place setting, like, this was something that they like, one of them was a message in a bottle, and every single guest got a personalized message, handwritten, personalized message from the couple. And the other one was a thank you note that was put into their envelope of itineraries with the couple's name and what have you. But then they got a personalized note in their itinerary saying, thank you for coming to the wedding. It was really, I mean, that personalization, taking it to the next level and starting that experience, not just at the wedding day, but when they check in.
Right. Those out of town bags are definitely filled with so much love and everything, but they want to make sure that they're getting that message to their guests, that they are so appreciated for coming and spending their time with them.
Yeah. Gone are the days of the 2 bottles of water and the snacks. And are the days of, like, something specific toward, finding out what their favorite snack is or what their favorite drink is, and putting that in a bag for them specifically.
So statistically, because the numbers got here, 60% of couples said their vision is the thing they're most excited about, is the vision. We also found that 75% of couples deem their guest experience as the most crucial during their planning process. So from the very planning, 75%. And that figure rose to 80% amongst couples who have over 100 guests. So the more guests you have, the more important this guest experience becomes. And then when they're talking about inspiration from culture influences, couples are really prioritizing their personalization and unique, memorable experience that showcases them as a couple, or their, like I said earlier, their brand, right? So, like,
that would mean, as a vendor, right? So if I'm if I'm advertising on the Knot, if I'm working with the Knot, that means I need to start focusing on that experience piece more and more, about, like, the ideas that I can come up with for couples as a planner. This is what this is one of the things I try to do, is come up with new and interesting ways to create that experience, and from the smallest details to the big moment.
Yep. I was talking to a venue last night up in the Pittsburgh area, and we were talking about this idea of lead magnets on their website. It was a venue, and different lights of lead magnet. Lead magnet is a little button that they click, you fill out, the couple fills out their email address, et cetera, and they get the information. Right. One of their biggest lead magnets that they got the most leads from was ideas for cool guest experience that they can do at their venue. Right. And cool. It wasn't an overproduced. It was a quick Canva doc with some photos. It had a video linked into it of people playing, like, cornhole or et cetera. But people, we know that guest experience is everything. Come on, wedding pros, let's put it out there. Like, you guys are the professionals. You see it all the time. You need to build trust and rapport with couples to get the lead, to get the sales consultation, to book that wedding. Be helpful.
Well, and it's not like they're hiring less vendors. I mean, your recent trend report said that couples hire on an average 14 vendors. I mean, I hear that and I'm like, whoa, that is a lot of vendors. But, that does include, like, rings. Does it include rings? No, I don't think it includes rings, but wedding dresses.
But in some markets, it's 16, depending on the market, right? So I look at that. Couples hire an average of 14 vendors, and I look at somebody, I look at a wedding. We'll pick on Keith. He's a wedding planner. What other revenue streams can Keith offer these weddings, his clients, to pick up some of that one or two of those vendors that they're hiring somebody else? Marcy's a stationery, unbelievably talented, right? Like, what other things can she do? Is it signage? little
Signage.
signs, big signs, all of those things pick up that revenue stream. Remember when we started, this is $100 billion a year industry. You know, there's no longer 2.5 million weddings taking place like the pent up after COVID. There's 2 million. So there's less weddings. So grab some of that revenue stream.
Well, and that's interesting that you even brought up signage, because unplugged seemed to be like the term of the year for 2024 is unplug. I mean, I even had a bride say, "Can I bring an air horn?" And I just was like, "Yeah, let's pause on that piece." But I mean, the idea of that intimate moment, going back to that intimate moment with less people, more intimacy, better experience, and unplug, get away from the world around us.
Can we go back? Did you say an air horn?
Air horn, yes.
What is the air horn for?
She was gonna literally have it up at the ceremony, and if she saw somebody pick up a phone, she was gonna scream and like, oh yeah, that's we talked her out of that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, these brides can be like intense sometimes.
Okay,
But
so with that, let me ask you this: is that a result of the things that they're seeing on AI, or TikTok rather, where they're seeing other people exposing, being, I would say, I don't want to say rude, but on the
I get it. No. And Tom, that's a great question, because I didn't even know the Knot had a TikTok, by the way.
No, well, it's not so much Knot, but in general, I think Marcy is saying, if I'm gonna put words in your mouth, is I see it on my TikTok feed all the time of the poor photographer misses the shot of the big kiss because somebody came in the aisle to take a picture with their cell phone. I just saw that yesterday, actually. So, I mean, it's heightened. Some of the social media stuff is bad, but some of it is like, okay, like, let's stop this madness. You know what I mean? Like, let's them have an intimate moment and, put your phones away.
And put your phones away and be in the moment. I think I hear that more all the time, is that people, we went from this moment of film everything to now that people are like, we have somebody filming it. Please put your phone away, because we want you to be here with us in this moment. So that way it builds a memory, not a memory of you making a memory on film, right? I think that I love that about Gen Z. And I think that's really surprising, because I really didn't think it was going to go in that direction. But the data supports all of this. I mean, the fact that Gen Z is becoming, I feel like, more down to earth and with and more caring, more interested in the bonds.
We have hope.
I know.
The world has hope. Thank you, Gen Z. The world has hope.
I love that. But how much of this is being driven by like pop culture? Because I saw in the study that pop culture is becoming a big piece of the wedding trends. And so do you feel like, like Taylor Swift is really big on the caring idea? I mean, that's where the whole friendship bracelet thing came from, is from Taylor Swift, right? It's all about love and caring and support of each other. And she's big on that. So are pop icons having a big influence?
Absolutely. Pop culture is always influenced weddings. Celebrity weddings has always influenced weddings. Now in the world in which we live, where there's so much connectivity with social media and TikTok and instant and the sharing, it's even a bigger situation. It's going to influence weddings. There's no doubt about it.
And you see
cultural moments like the trends of Wicked. Now that's out. That'll be very interesting, right? Like Wicked's out. I've never seen Wicked. I've never really heard of Wicked, but do I want to go see Wicked now?
Yes,
I do. I do. I like it, so. There's nothing right now that we see immediately with Wicked happening, but absolutely we know it's going to happen, and it's going to happen quickly. We're going to see that in TikTok after this weekend, probably.
Green and pink, baby. Green and pink.
And I think it's more than the green and pink. I mean, like, there were so many elements throughout the whole movie that I was picking up on as a stationer. In my creativity, that's where I'm drawing inspiration, from other avenues. And one of them is, movies and, culture and thing. I mean, going back to the 80s, you have a lot of the bold fonts and so forth that you see. And that's derived from the inspiration that you see from like Taylor Swift and her branding and so forth. I mean, those are all playing a part in, the invitation to the day of stationery, your menu cards, your seating arrangements. Those are all playing a part.
So what are you seeing in Tom as far as aesthetics? What is the data telling us when it comes to like themes that people are like kind of paying attention to more than others?
Sort of like this idea of opulence or royal weddings. You know, the again, back to this romanticizing of weddings, more so than ever before, right?
Mhm.
Like romantic, vintage, you know, soft muted colors, sophistication, understated elegance, all of those things. That's what's being searched, and that's what we will be seeing so much more as we move into wedding season into 2025.
I love that idea because, I love the idea of opulence because I also read in your study about quiet luxury. And I feel like the two actually are very playful off of each other. That,
Yes.
Quiet luxury doesn't mean expensive. Quiet luxury means service to me. To me, that says, we want our guests waited on hand and foot. We want to make sure that their needs are taken care of, that they get to just kind of forget the world and don't even have to ask before something is brought to them.
The pampering effect.
Yes, a pampering effect. Is that kind of what you're starting to see people like look for? Is that kind of experience?
110%. Back to that experience. Absolutely.
And then I'm assuming, and since they're doing all the searches online, so wedding planning sites remain like super important according to this, right? 75% of couples still view wedding planning websites as irreplaceable resources. I mean, it used to be the book. You remember the big wedding book that everybody had, and they had the wedding planning,
the binder, the
binder. Oh, the binder.
They made a binder. It was sold in like Joanne Fabrics and Michaels, and it was yes, the binder. So what's the binder now? People still do binders.
Google Docs.
Yeah, phones. People keep everything in their phones and Google Docs and spreadsheets and etc. So hey, it's more convenient.
Well, and with that comes this quiet luxury, and we talk about opulence and elegance and luxury and what have you, but that directly ties with economy, right? And we've gone through a big inflationary period. Right. So what did the trends show? How are people reacting to the economy, to economics?
I think that the biggest telltale sign there is, I'm confident the biggest telltale sign there is the guest counts have gone down. They still want that big, beautiful wedding or a beautiful wedding. It's just they can't have 300 people anymore. They're having to manage 115 people.
So that's a big one, is that they're dropping their guest count in order to still be able to have the wedding that they wanted.
Absolutely. They still need planners. Actually, statistically, all right, what's the statistics? 7% more planners being used year over year. I mean, they're still using 14 vendors. They're still having these weddings, and they still want the opulence and everything else that goes along with it. But the economy is a big play. It just is.
Well, and it does like 30%
is there more of a conscious level of a conscious level of who they're inviting? Because like I always get asked from people like, who do I invite? Who am I supposed to invite? And obviously, it's not up to me. It's up to you as, the person that's getting married. But I always say, think about like the 10-year rule. I always think of a 10-year rule as, are you going to still be talking with these people in 10 years? Because ultimately you do have to invite, there are certain family members, maybe you don't necessarily want to invite, but you do have to invite your family. And then the people that are closest to you. And I think that's why the numbers are coming down. I think people are really paying attention to that aspect of, I like you said, I want to have that luxury event. I want to have that feel of having my guests feel pampered, but they're not necessarily having those big numbers in the attendance.
Well, and what really surprised me about all of this is that here we have the inflation. We have people reducing their guest count, relooking at their budgets, tweaking the numbers. Some of them are increasing their budget. And yet with all of this, 95% of couples remain excited about their upcoming wedding. 95%, meaning that the idea of dredging, the idea of spending money is not really affecting them. They're still excited about that. They're figuring out ways to still make it happen, and they're going to make it happen, and they're going to be excited about that. That's incredible.
Yep. The with this Gen Z, and there's too many, YouTubes and TikTok videos that Gen Z people aren't getting married. It's just not the case. Our studies show that that's just not the case. Thankfully, the wedding business is stronger than ever. This study shows that alone. Like, we're in the right business. If you're in the wedding business, you're in the right business. If you are a couple and listening to this, use the sites like the Not Wedding Wire. Go into the marketplace and find vendors like Keith and Marcy that can help make these dreams come true for you. You get hopefully one shot at this.
What seemed to go with it is that they value expertise more than previous generations, which I found really exciting, because I felt like I went through a time where people were like, well, I can get what you can teach me online, And I was like, no, I guarantee you cannot find what I'm able to do online, because experience is experience is experience. And I feel like Gen Z seems to be a little bit more focused on the idea of bringing people in that have a good expertise at what they do.
And the interesting thing is, our studies show that if that particular wedding pro connects with that couple, builds trust, builds rapport, be helpful, be on listening, that they are more than willing to go above their budget for that particular vendor.
Really?
More than willing to go above a budget situation.
So they're willing to spend the money if they feel like they're getting value for it. If they feel like this person gets me. This person understands my vision. They've got the experience to make what I want done. And they're going, you know what? Yeah, they're $2,000 more than we wanted to spend, but we're going to spend it because we feel more secure using this vendor versus another because they have more experience. Am I correct?
110%.
That's incredible. I love that, because it gives me hope. It gives I think vendors need to understand that as well, is that, it's no longer a numbers game where, you got to answer like 20 people in order to get, 5 bookings or 6 bookings or whatever it used to be. It's about the quality of connection time with each person. I think that's what Gen Zers are looking for, is that connection.
That connection, and how you're following up with your leads. And, if you have a phone number, if they give you a phone number, you should be calling and texting. You should be asking how they want to be communicated with. In your lead responses, you should be building that trust and rapport and being helpful, all of those things. And you finally get to a sales consultation and you're asking great questions. What are the top things you want? What wedding did you recently go to that you would never want to see at your wedding? Connecting with them, and then building a recommendation based on what their wants and needs are, not a package out of your website, maybe.
Well, and I find this interesting because it kind of lends itself into the, back to the experience. So the Gen Zers want people that are experienced. They want to provide an experience for their guests. They're more specific about the number of guests that are coming to them and providing that whole experience for everybody that's coming. But then they're also looking at unique vendors, right? Because the same old is not going to be done anymore. They want to do something different, unique, interesting, something that people will remember. So what are you seeing as like the top unique vendors that people are looking for nowadays?
Well, that's interesting, right? Like, let's talk about dog sitters.
See, to me as a dog lover, that's a no-brainer. Of course, my dog can be involved.
But more and more, we're seeing couples incorporate their pets into their big day, and inside of that, more and more, we're seeing venues that have specific rules about having pets. Right. Yes. I know a couple in South Florida here that have very specific rules. So, back to that whole idea of guest experience, things like fire dancers. Cool. Trying to get that in a venue, right? But, I
was about to say, I'm like, I can't even get lit candles in a venue.
But back to their culture, back to their religious beliefs, things that are like that, cultural dances and outfit changes with those culture dances. I just saw that somewhere, actually in Florida. So all of those unique things that maybe you're not the person to do that, to be the dog sitter, but you're the helpful vendor that can connect that particular couple with that dog sitter or that unique experience. What are you guys seeing? You're out there more than I am in weddings.
The one thing that I've been really seeing is the surprise piece. Like I've been seeing, and this has actually happened twice at the same venue and almost the exact same way, which actually made it a little easier to do the second time. But went into this very fabulous, opulent setting for dinner, like very formal dinner. And then we had a fake wall created so they couldn't even see the third part of it. They thought it was a wall. And behind that wall was an LED dance floor, a band, frozen ice cream done with nitrogen, like all of this like crazy lighting, lasers, all of that, but all hidden behind a wall. And so then when the couple at the end of dinner got up, they walked towards this wall, and very dramatically the wall separates and the lasers and the fog come through, and there's this band playing, and people went nuts. They went absolutely nuts because it was this huge surprise. And I feel like the surprise thing is coming back big time. People love to like surprise their guests, make them think that they're getting one experience and have that experience done super well, incredible, and then switching and going to this other totally different kind of moment, but joyful, always meant to be impactful in the most positive way. What about you, Marcy?
Yeah, I mean, I see like things like bobbleheads where they're like creating
bobbleheads
where they're creating like their little family dynamic where it does include their dog or their pet, if they have a cat or something, but like if they're whether or not they have the pet there or not for the ceremony, they still have that opportunity to bring that little personal touch right there. And it's kind of like a lot of times like people don't realize it until they get right upon that wedding cake and they're seeing, whether it's on the cake or on the side, they're seeing it and they're like, oh, like they get that warm, fuzzy feeling. And I think that's really helpful for them to feel that they're showing their personal already created family unit.
I was surprised to see tattoo artists on your list. I mean, that caught me off guard when I was reading through the trend report and I saw a tattoo artist. I went, really?
And I've seen henna artists too, which is another form of tattoo, but it's not permanent.
Which kind of dives into that whole cultural experience that is part of the trends report. But but the tattoo artist, and I was thinking temporary tattoos, but Marcy, I think you brought up that before we met, when we met before, that no, these are actual tattoo artists. These are real like alive tattoos.
I saw one where they actually were showing actual tattoos, and I was taken back because it was the first time I'd ever seen it. But it's actually an interesting idea.
I'm Talk about a memory that lasts forever.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I mean, remember that tattoo.
Golly, I just think bad decisions.
Don't put your wedding dates, your wedding date name on there. You don't know if you're going to be with them, right? No, you want to put something that's permanent. If it's a permanent situation, you want to make sure it's permanent.
Right. But I just like, that's really surprised me. So what about like venues and well, actually before we get into venues, what about cities? Because I know in the past, being in South Florida, we were a hot spot for, beach weddings and tourist destination. And it seemed like there was a shift a little bit with some of the hottest cities to get married in.
There has been, as far as searches, like this study is based on where people are searching now.
Right.
I am looking for that, Keith. Do you have that in front of you?
I do. Yes. Yeah. So Santa Barbara, San Diego, which we kind of knew, Chicago, New Orleans, but like Long Island, Cincinnati, Cape Cod, Los Angeles, Charlotte, North Carolina,
but these
Columbus, Ohio. Come on.
These could also be they're searching for them because they are finding inspiration for what they want to bring to their own hometown or wherever they're married.
I don't know. I saw Columbus, Ohio. Not against anybody from Columbus.
I can tell you for sure. I'm from Boston. My husband's from New York. Yes, we're going to try to bring, we would have tried to bring in that kind of inspiration at this point. Things were not as personalized when we got married.
So where did this data come from? So when we look at this and we're trying to make sense of the data that is coming, how did this, especially like the cities, where did that data come from?
So with those 21 million unique monthly searches on the Knot and Wedding Wire, Those are the cities that are being searched the most for weddings right now.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Now,
As in just in general,
getting married in Miami and everywhere else, but these were those were the top ones. To Marcy's point, I think there's many reasons they could be getting married there. They could be looking for inspiration there. There's many different reasons, but the data is the data, and it's our job to make sure that we give you all what the data is and not sugarcoat anything, like make anything bigger than what it is or less than what it is. So, but
you're like the data. It doesn't.
It's the data. And what do I take from that?
Yeah, I
don't really know. You know what I mean? Like they're searching for it now. That's where they're searching, but they're getting married. They're getting married everywhere. So, especially when it comes to those specific cities that they're searching.
I wonder, and I was trying to make this connection before, which is the top searches on the Not Vendor Marketplace highlight desire for distinctive and scenic settings, such as library weddings, garden venues, castles, beaches, and mountain venues. And when I look at this list of cities, I go, okay, I get it. Yep, I see a library wedding. I see a garden venue. I see castles. I see beaches. I see mountain venues, all in those cities. That's what kind of my imagination would see. So, are the two tied?
It absolutely tied, right? Like mountain venues and garden. It's absolutely, those cities are tied to the venue searches. Absolutely, like library weddings. Which library weddings that's a new term that when I saw this report a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, library weddings? Like, what's a library wedding?
I did a library wedding. I did a library. Yes.
Yes. A few
books
years
and
ago.
books, baby. I did a books and books wedding inside the store. It was awesome. It was a great, yeah. I mean, and it stayed open to the customers. So they kept it open.
Oh, they did keep it open. I didn't know that.
Yes, people kept it open. People came in to get a book and watched a wedding. It was really lovely. And I, one of the things that I just reread was the trend report that came out on the Knot, which was talking about I don't know how to put this, but it was like the year of surprises, aesthetic dress codes, mind your greens, the branded wedding, the next level photo and video experience, tailored welcome and immersive events. I love that. I mean, that's the whole idea of like getting the family together for a whole weekend, getting your friends and family in an immersive experience from start to finish. I think I love that because with a smaller guest count, you can do that.
Yep, absolutely. And around holidays too, more than ever before, people are getting married and expanding that day to around holidays. In the past, at least not so recent past, you would never want to get married on a New Year's Eve.
No, yeah.
New Year's Eve and it's been big for years, but it's going to get even bigger, right? 4th of July, all those holidays and that immersive experience is what it's all about. So Wet Pros out there.
The wedding size?
What, Marcy?
Do you think that could be related to the wedding size if they're like having more of just their family unit?
That's a good. That's an interesting thought.
One part of me says absolutely, especially if they're paying for everything, right? Who's paying for everything? But the other part, it's interesting. Just on a personal note, I went to 3 weddings this year, and all 3 weddings were immersive. They were 3, 4, 5 day wedding things. You know what I mean? They weren't huge. They were around the 100, 120 maybe people, but they were all immersive. There was more than just the welcome dinner too. Right? Inside the welcome dinner, there was guest experience inside that welcome dinner and tastings and all of these things. So again, the takeaway from this is, as wedding professionals, how are you sharing that information? How are you helping those couples? Are you blogging about it? Are you showing pictures about it? Are you asking those questions of like, tell me about the experience that you want to give more so than just outside of the day, and grab some of that $100 billion.
Well,
I'm in the midst of doing a blog right now for Wicked. So I'm going to, people will see how it relates to like stationary trends and so forth.
That's genius.
Which is perfect. It's right on target.
Well, perfect. And I'm really, I mean, there's so much more to talk about because we didn't even talk about like the repositioning of wedding parties so they can see their friends' faces. We were already doing this with the parents, sitting them opposite of their child so that they could see their child's face versus the groom's face, So it was used to be the bride's family was looking at the groom's face, but now the bride is like, no, I want my family to sit opposite me so I can see them and during the wedding. And so now I feel that the natural course has been now the wedding party is opposite. The bride's on one side and her bridesmaids on the other so they can see her face. I love that. I just love that. It's that connection piece that keeps coming into it. And we didn't even talk about AI or unexpected reds or any of that stuff. I mean, oh my God, there was just so much in this report. So
the AI is insane right now. I mean, just talking about that for a moment. AI, I have seen so much AI. I don't even know what's real and what isn't real anymore.
Right? I mean, now that people are getting better about that.
Pictures of himself, and I'm like, okay, which one is real and which one isn't?
So if somebody wants to read this, because again, there's just so much data in here. There's just so much data, and it's really an interesting read. It doesn't take you long, but I mean, it is important to go through it because there are so many touch points in this. Where would somebody go to get the report? Because I know. Go ahead.
You can just Google the Knot Editorial 2025 wedding trends. And you can get it there. You can go on weddingpro.com. There's a landing page there. You can email me. My email is going across the stream. And I'll be happy to send it to you too. I'm excited about 2025. Like, I feel like, 2024, not that it was bad in any way, shape, or form, but we're getting our legs, sort of the great wedding reset and everybody getting back to a normal after COVID. And as we move into 2025 with the Generation Z coming even more in play here, and just this trend study alone, I think I'm confident it's going to be a great year. I'm excited. I'm stoked.
I think I really do. I feel like everybody's been first it was get over COVID, get back into the world, get your feet back under you, get back into normal life. Hurry. Let's catch up with all the stuff we missed. And then we went through this kind of lull, like, oh, okay, I'm really tired of trying to catch up and do all this. And I feel like we're back into the positivity and the joy and the happiness and getting back to life as we know it and making sure that it makes sense for us.
And remember, what we all do in this industry as wedding professionals, what we do matters.
It really does.
So be proud of that.
Unbelievable. So, Tom, of course, you've been a joy again. So if people wanted to reach out to you, obviously we've been running your email because people can email you directly, which I
absolutely all day long. That's what I'm here for.
And then if they wanted to follow you on Instagram or on TikTok, how would they find anything like the Knot and the Wedding Wire?
Follow wedding. If you're a wedding professional, follow us on Instagram at Wedding Pro. My Instagram is T_Chelednik or Tom_Chelednik. Always email me. Part of my job, which I love. I have the best job at the Knot. I am very blessed and lucky that I want to help wedding pros. So advertise, don't advertise. You have questions, whatever. Shoot me an email. We'll get time on the calendar and we'll talk.
Amazing. Oh my God. So, and then of course, thank you, Marcy Gutenberg. I can't believe it. Like, it's crazy to be back. Oh, and by the way, I should actually say, and I didn't even say this at the beginning, but this episode was probably sponsored by the Knot. So thank you. Holy moly. Thank you for sponsoring this. And we can't wait to come back. We will be coming back in 2025, with more Behind the Veil. But until then, we're all going to say goodbye.
Thank you guys. Have a great year.
Thank you, Tom.